Really good, really good.
Order, please be standing for the elected mayor, chair and vice chair.
Welcome to everyone present at this meeting in the Civic Centre and to those observing the meeting on Microsoft Teams. No fire doors are expected to be seen, so in the event of the alarm sounding, please quickly make your way out of the building. There are 3 exits in this room which members can use to vacate the premises. Ensure your mobile phones are turned on silent or switch off, and please take any calls outside the council chamber. Do not leave any bags in the company and report any incomplete bags. Remember to take any bags with you when these must included or as you read the meeting statement. This meeting may be subject to filming or audio recording by others in accordance with the council's filming protocol. Anyone who remains in the meeting following this announcement will have due to a consent to allow their image to be recorded and broadcast. I'd like to remind members to turn the microphones on when speaking and to sit back from the microphones to assist the audio recording. If we go to item 1 of the agenda, are there any apologies for absence?
Yes, we have apologies, Chair, from Councillor Flandrick, Councillor North and Councillor Walker.
Thank you. Councillor Coxhead?
Can I also give councillor Abs?
Councillor Henshaw?
Yes, Chair. Give apologies to Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Metcalfe and Councillor North.
Thank you. Are there any other apologies?
Sorry, Chair, just to confirm, Councillor Standard also giving apologies.
Thank you. Thank you. Move on to item 2 of the agenda. Are there any declarations of interest? No declarations of interest. Item 3 of the agenda, receipt of correspondence, label accounts by the chair of the council, elected mayor, members of the executive or head of paid services. Are there any correspondence?
Yes, there has, Chair. Since the last meeting of Council, the authority has been received from a letter from central government in relation to funding relating to plan for neighbourhoods. Council may remember that this was originally aligned to that of the long-term plan for towns funding, subsequently been redesigned around that of a reference to plan for neighbourhoods funding. This is over a 10-year investment plan for the district. It's an investment or an allocation of grants of up to £19.537 million over that 10-year period. 75% of which of that is capital, 25% of which is revenue, and requires us to work in conjunction with our existing place board to consider the development of a neighbourhoods board. Just to share with council, as this progresses over time, there'll be more robust updates and information to council as how we intend to deliver against the requirements set by government. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So item 4 of the agenda, advanced questions from members of the public. Are there any advanced questions from members of the public?
There are none, Chair.
Item 5 on the agenda, advanced questions submitted by elected members. Are there any other questions from members?
There are none, Chair.
Thank you. Item 6 of the commission agenda, various decision from the portfolio holder for corporate and finance. Revenue capital forecast year position at 43. I'd now like to invite Councillor Whitman to present and propose this report.
Thank you very much, Chair. This is the third quarterly monitoring report for 24-25, setting out the forecast position for both our revenue and capital budgets. As members will know, this continues to be a very challenging time financially, with inflation, service demands and wider economic uncertainty putting real pressure on council budgets. Although the General Fund is currently forecasting a healthy position, I want to be clear that many council services are costing more to deliver than budgeted, and in several areas we are still overspending. The healthier overall forecast is only possible because of one-off savings on borrowing costs, which have temporarily offset some of these pressures. These are not savings we can rely on in future years. The housing revenue account remains balanced, but also faces pressures including higher void losses and compliance costs. Our capital programme continues to deliver important projects, but with some delays, so we are asking a carry forward funding to ensure that schemes progress into next year. We're also seeking to bring forward fire safety works on housing complexes and to approve environments for ICT equipment to support frontline services. Finally, Chair, I want to stress that this report reinforces the need to continue with our savings programme into 25 and 26 to ensure that we can manage these ongoing pressures and protect essential services. I therefore move the recommendations as set out in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. The seconder?
I'll second and reserve the right.
Does anybody wish to comment on this motion? Elected Mayor?
Nothing to add.
Councillor Whitby?
Nothing to add, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now put it to the vote. It's by show of hands. All those in favour? Those against? Abstention. Thank you. The motion is carried. Move on to item 7 of the English agenda, variation of capital programme, the crematorium. I'd now like to invite Councillor Burley to present his report.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to seek approval for the addition to the capital programme for the Mansfield District contribution to the refurbishment of the Mansfield crematorium. For those of you who aren't aware, the crematorium is operated through a joint committee appointed from Ashfield, Newark and Sherwood and Mansfield District Councils. The crematorium as it stands is an ageing facility with cremations nearing end of life. It is increasingly difficult to find expertise and supplies to keep the crematories operating efficiently as it is likely they'll soon be beyond repair. Market share has decreased due to competition of newer private crematoriums and operational constraints. Cremation capacity has been reduced to minimise stress on the equipment, impacting service availability and market perception. The Joint Crematorium Committee has been exploring options for a new or refurbished crematorium for some time, but following feasibility studies and ever-increasing costs, a new crematorium has become financially unviable. The JCC took a decision on the 24th of February 2025 to approve and support a refurbishment of the existing facility subject to approval by each constituent authority. In doing so, there is a requirement for each authority to make a financial contribution towards the refurbishment. This report seeks to do this so by veering uncommitted capital budgets towards the overall cost of the scheme. If approval is granted by Council this evening, this will allow officers to proceed with planning the project. Regular updates will be taken to the JCC on progress and to the Council through the Council budget monitoring processes. It's anticipated that the project will take 45 weeks to complete once on site. I ask the Council to fully endorse this report and approve the recommendations as set out in section 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bergen. Does anyone have any questions for Councillor Bergen? Thank you. Do you have a second?
I second and reserve the right.
Does anybody wish to comment on this motion? Thank you, elected Mayor.
Nothing further to add.
Councillor Bergen.
Nothing further. Our Chair, I still put everyone who support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Take it to the vote. This will be by a show of hands. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. The motion is carried. Move on to item 8 of the published agenda, establishment of a housing board. And I'd like to invite Councillor Callaghan to present her report, establishing a housing board.
Thank you. I take it that everybody's read this, and the purpose of this report is to establish a housing board due to the housing regulator set by the government that states all housing providers should have a housing board. I think this is something that we're clearly missing here at MDC, and I think going forward it's a positive thing to have because it will oversee the compliance of consumer standards as they relate to social landlords, which we are one of them, functions and will be supported by terms of reference. The chair and cabinet member will each prepare a report of the board to the council and cabinet respectively biannually. The board will not be a decision-making board, but will be established for the purpose of oversight and assurance, and that will be made up by independent people as well as tenants from MDC and private landlords. I hope that we can go through with the recommendations that we can establish a housing board. It's not going to cost a lot of money. It will be meeting twice a year, and we're already in the process of looking at establishing this board. Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions for Councillor Callaghan?
Thank you. I think Councillor,
Sorry, Councillor.
I bet you declare an interest of a social landlord, so I don't want to read the room.
No,
Sure.
no,
No.
it's going to involve you anyway, Steve.
On?
It's going to involve you anyway.
Does anybody else have any questions? Okay. I'd like to invite Councillor Callaghan to propose a report.
Yeah, I'd like to propose this report and let's have a look at supporting it, please. No further questions.
Yeah, I second and reserve the right.
Does anybody wish to comment? No? Thank you. Elected Mayor,
Nothing further to add.
Councillor Callaghan. If I put the motion to the vote, by show of hands, all those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Motion is carried. Now we go to item 9 of the published agenda. Local government reorganisation and interim. I have to invite the elected mayor to present his report on the interim plan for local government reorganisation.
Thank you. The local government reorganisation interim plan is set out on pages 45 to 52 of your agenda pack, with a correspondence from the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government on pages 55 to 62. The background to local government reorganisation is an aim for a simpler, more sustainable local government organisation. The guidance from Secretary of State for the proposals for the creation of the unitary local government is set out on pages 63, and it details 6 principles. So the proposal should seek to achieve for the whole of the area concerned with the establishment of a single tier of local government. And so it's referring there to sensible economic areas with an appropriate tax base which does not create undue advantage or disadvantage for the area. The second principle is that the unitary local government must be of the right size to achieve efficiencies, improve capacity and withstand financial shocks. As a guiding principle, it should aim for a population of 500,000 or more. The third point is that the unitary structures must prioritise the delivery of high quality and sustainable public services to citizens. The fourth principle, the proposal should show how the councils in the area have sought to work together with a view that meets the local needs and is informed by local views. The fifth, the unitary structure must support the devolution arrangement. So in our case, it's the East Midlands Combined Authority, and we'll see in the proposals that there's some alignment with what we're proposing in Nottinghamshire with what's moving forward in Derbyshire. And the sixth one is that the unitary structures should enable strong community engagement and deliver genuine opportunity for neighbourhood empowerment. Our approach in delivering the proposals for local government reorganisation are set out on page 75. I'll just go through a few of them. The first one is the most important, that since the start of this process on this incredibly tight timeline, which is set out in item 4.1, was a collaborative approach. So what we've had is all 7 district chief executives and leader of the county council and leader of the city council, we've all been working together in a collaborative, the bullet points set it out, but basically we're trying to be honest and transparent and pragmatic in that if we can come through a collective decision on the right way forward, that is what we're going to try and present to government. The other points are around financial and fiscal stability, and this thing in relation to how people live their lives. So it's about the credible geography. It's got to identify the identity that makes a place. So it's like communities, and hopefully that connectivity as well. And really, we're looking at how we can sustain operation delivery of public services. So we also want to, for the potential of public service reform, to improve outcomes for our residents. And the current 2-tier system is kind of disjointed and doesn't really, the general person just wants to know, well, what one authority, whether it's your roads, your bins, your housing, your regeneration, they're very interested in the outcomes. And this gives them an opportunity to work as if there is one accountable body. So that was the next bullet point. So the process, we employed, we jointly commissioned PricewaterhouseCoopers, who had got extensive experience of this. They were actually a retained consultant of Nottinghamshire County Council, and they initially came up with 9 proposals, which are set out on page 77. At the end of this process, which considered all the factors that I previously set out, we couldn't reach complete agreement on all of us on the 3 proposals, which were 1E, 1F, and option 2. But as far as we are concerned, on the evidence presented so far from the consultants, we are strongly in favour of what's being called the Sherwood Unitary, which is effectively a northern unitary, and that is the 5 districts, which is Bassetlaw, Mansfield, Mansfield, Ashfield, Newcastle, Sherwood, and Gedling. And when you look at a map of Nottinghamshire, you can see there's a logical line where those communities on the whole share the same and similar identity, and it passes the financial sustainability criteria. We don't believe that the other options do that in any way, and the evidence we've been presented so far suggests that is the case. So our recommendation is very strongly for option 1A, the Sherwood unitary, because I believe this, sorry, 1E. What did I say? Oh, apologies. Option 1E, very vital, the Sherwood unitary to go forward. The recommendations are set out on page, excuse me a second, looking through. 45. Yeah, page 45. The four recommendations there is to endorse and note the submission of the local government reorganisation interim plan for Nottingham and Nottinghamshire, to express to government national district council's clear preference for 1E, and number 3, welcome the continuation of providing periodical briefings to members and reports to council if necessary on the agenda around the local government reorganisation as it develops. And 4, that £250,000 is allocated from the corporate priorities reserve to a local government reorganisation reserve.
Thank you very much. Well, I've not mixed my words. I'm against this. The only viable on that one is the number 2, which is Nottingham Unitary Authority, what is now, and the county together. Right? Because when I look at what the
Question.
Oh,
Is this leading to a question?
do I have to question? I'm just explaining.
Questions.
Debates later.
Right, okay, then here's a question then. How can Rushcliffe, which is a wide district, be compatible with Nottingham City? So that'd be my question then. Can I come back to a small question?
Well, it's not really for this elected forum to answer why Rushcliffe might be compatible with Nottingham City Council. I could be tempted to respond, but it's not really appropriate because we're considering the Sherwood unitary, the northern, and the justification for that one.
Yes, thank you for that. Thank you for that. I'm just going to ask you, how do you think the northern part of the county that you worked out in your little mind that it's going to be the best one, when we have the highest number of child care problems, the highest number of adult care, social problems, we've got all the problems in the world, and it all comes to the north of the county, all of it. Right, so you're going to put Gedling and all this together without Rushcliffe, it will be the poorest unitary in the whole of England. It will be without doubt. You will have services breaking down. In fact, I was going to say it'll be like MDC but bigger. And I think that you really ought to go back and have a look and sort it out, because we cannot afford. We cannot. The question is, how did? Well, that's a good question. How come you came to this conclusion when you know that we haven't got the money to have the northern unitary? How come? I want to know how you come to that conclusion.
You and all these big brains that you've got, but all I know that this unit will be broke if we do that. Okay.
First of all, you need to watch your conduct. You know, it's quite insulting talking about your little mind. It's not a very professional way of communicating. It's quite insulting and inaccurate. So if you listen to the response, and if you listened to the earlier description, it came about by employing a professional, big-brained public private consultant, PricewaterhouseCoopers, which were, if you'd listened, were the consultant that Notts County Council actually recommended. Oh, you are a member of Notts County Council, aren't you? Yeah, so it was the consultant that they recommended. We could have been quite cynical and thought, well, maybe that consultant attached to the county council might be biased, but we decided to work in a collaborative way, in agreement, I'll repeat again, with 707 other districts and the city council. They've got experience across the country, including when the previous Conservative government was in office, about bringing the data and accuracy on local government reorganisation. So we put our faith, and they produced an extensive report that covered every aspect. And you'll see in the paper that option 1E came out as one of the strongest options. And if you look at the criteria, we are fighting for, along with our neighbours, for this northern Sherwood unitary, because we share the same values, connectivity, and it's financially viable. Thank you.
Assure me that this option 1E, is done for the right reasons and not for political reasons. It seems that two Conservative council, or usually Conservative council, have been put in with the city, and the county is going to be stronger Labour-wise. Can you assure me that that's why it's uncoincident? Thank you.
Yeah, the work has been done by the independent consultants, and when I set out the criteria, so effectively the criteria set out by the government, and then the independent consultant then did the investigation against extensive criteria. The report they produced in sort of less than 2 weeks was absolutely phenomenal, and it's the thing around local identity. The character of, we're sort of fighting for Mansfield, and there's always been that almost false boundary, hasn't there, between Mansfield and Nashville to start with. We have many joint services, the boundary goes halfway through the res. We have the college, they have the hospital, but really we are the same people. And then if you spread that out into the fringes, you've got Clipston and Edwardstown and River, most of these people kind of identify with Mansfield. So you can't, I can see quite easily how you can say, well, political geography, but it's because of our history, geography and local identity. And then when you cross over towards Nottingham City in the south, you get a different political landscape, but a different identity. And that is the one thing, really. There are many factors in it, but we appoint, between us consultants, but I think 90% of the people in here, if it said, how will you split Nottinghamshire up into 2 unitaries? most of us will put a line pretty much that's like a north-south divide.
I'd just like to say that you've printed off here a number of options that we can be considered. But we're told we've only got one option to vote on. So all the other options don't even come into for discussion. You're telling us of one decision that you have made. And that's one recommendation. All the others we're not yet to consider as one.
The recommendation. Vote again, to be honest, yeah.
Thank you for your question. We are submitting, as it says, the recommendation, 3 options. But we've been in these discussions around, we want to show that we're pragmatic and collaborative. And one of the criteria is for us to present together. But the truth is, option 2 doesn't meet anywhere near the criteria as 1E and 1F. It's this city donor. The principal problem with this one is that if you look around the criteria of 500,000, the city, you know, it's the southern unitary kind of issue, but they can't expand out from that position and become, it needs a wider geography to become financially viable. It doesn't meet the government criteria, but because politically the county wanted this proposal in, we've gone with it, but we don't back it in any way whatsoever. It will go forward. As far as I'm concerned, in this chamber, I'm speaking for the residents of Mansfield, and as I described before, our like-minded adjacent partners. So I want to strongly send a message via this chamber to the Minister that we strongly back 1E. And why we're not backing 1F, it's just a lesser version of 1E, and it doesn't back the financial viability. And the leaders of the adjacent districts in the north, we are all supporting this, and there's quite a lot of MPs backing as well. So although, you know, there are 3 options going forward, as far as I'm concerned, this chamber, I want to support that kind of identity, which is the Sherwood unitary, the north. Yeah, I formally proposed my report as set out on page 45, sorry, I keep flicking between them, yeah, that's my proposal.
Thank you.
I'll second that, Chair, and reserve the right.
Thank you. Does anybody wish to comment on the motion? Councillor Markson?
Yeah, we'd like to put in an amendment to the proposal, please.
You've had a second.
Oh, sorry.
Just not so numbers. Sorry. No, it's not.
Thank you, Chair. So I put forward this amendment, which essentially is just amending the first 2 points. The third being that the interim plan for local government reorganisation in Nottingham and Nottinghamshire is submitted to government. And then secondly, and most importantly, to express to government, Mansfield District Council preference is to endorse option 2. And detailed option 2 is contained within Appendix C. Now, the reason for this is because gives the people of Mansfield the best chance of their services being kept intact. The option 2 gives the best chance for a stronger tax base, keeping the entire county as one authority ensures financial stability, preventing disproportionate tax hikes in certain areas. Avoiding a higher council tax in the north, because if wealthier areas such as Rushford join Nottingham City, the remaining northern unitary would have a weaker tax base, likely leading to tax increases for residents. It gives a reduced risk of budget cuts because a divided county could result in funding gaps in northern districts, forcing cuts to essential services like legal care, waste collection, and local road maintenance. As Andre has already mentioned, there's a higher deprivation in the north. So northern districts such as Mansfield, Ashfield, and Bassetlaw have some of the highest levels of deprivation, meaning they rely more heavily on public services. There's an increased social care demands in the north, as the north has more children in care and growing elderly population. A financially weaker unitary authority would struggle to provide adequate adult and child social care services, which again would result in council tax hikes. And there's a risk to local amenities. A split county could lead to library closures, fewer leisure facilities, and reduced public health services, disproportionately affecting vulnerable communities. So not only is option 2 better for the long-term well-being of Mansfield residents, it's also much cheaper. Your own figures in the report on page 81 show that by going for option 2, it saves £8 million in transition costs over option 1E. And it also has an ongoing benefit of £2 million a year over option 1E. This money would be much better spent on services to our residents than bailing out Nottingham City Council after their scandalous spending sprees on things like Robin Hood Energy. Thank you.
Do you have a seconder? I'm going to adjourn the meeting for 10 minutes so this amendment can be discussed. Thank you.
that even there is going to be additional work. This is, you know, we're meeting the first timeline, and there will be more detailed work, more opportunity to discuss that within this chamber on that journey to November. But the system financially, the NHS, the education, financially, it's just broken. Something has to be done. And I'm fully supportive and confident that we have the skills, the will, the enthusiasm in our area with like-minded partners to make the Sherwood Unitary a success going forward. And I ask you to strongly back this proposal.
Thank you, elected mayor. We're now going to move to the vote. This will be by show of hands. For those, for. Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Motion is carried. We're now going to move on to item 10 of the published agenda, motions. Are there any motions for the meeting?
There is one, Chair.
Thank you. Elected mayor, would you like to present the motion?
Thank you, Chair. This council acknowledges and commends the leadership of Sir Keir Starmer and the government for their unwavering support for President Zelensky and the courageous people of Ukraine in their fight for sovereignty and freedom. We also recognise Sir Keir Starmer's recent tribute in Parliament to the British soldiers who lost their lives in Afghanistan and Iraq, underscoring the sacrifices made by our own armed forces in defending democratic values. At the same time, when Ukraine continues to face immense challenges, it's crucial that we, as a united community, demonstrate our solidarity with their struggle. Therefore, this council requests that Mansfield District Council take the necessary steps to fly the Ukrainian flag outside its premises at appropriate times. This visible act of support will honour the sacrifices made by the people of Ukraine and serve as a constant reminder of our commitment to standing against oppression and tyranny. By taking this action, we reflect our shared values of compassion and solidarity, offering a symbol of hope to those who seek peace and justice. I urge all members to support this motion, reinforcing our collective commitment to freedom and democracy.
Does anybody wish to comment? Councillor Watson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I wholeheartedly support this motion. You know, from as a conservative, it pains me to say and give praise to Keir Starmer, but in this, I think he's got it exactly right. We should stand with Ukraine. Just like, in fairness, you've got to say, just like Boris Johnson did, and Rishi Sunak, you know, like it or not, they both stood firm with Ukraine, just like Sir Keir Starmer has. So, you know, he has my support in that. Not that he'd be bothered if he got my support, so, you know what I mean? I never know. I don't think we have to look too far back in history to see parallels to the Second World War, when you had Hitler on the rise with a popular front in the late 20s and through the 1930s, and him going into the Sudetenland in what is now the Czech Republic, because that was sort of German land, and that's all they would be doing. And then all of a sudden they've overrun Czechoslovakia and they're moving into Poland, and the next thing we know, they've taken over the whole of Europe. It's genuinely not beyond the wit of man to be able to draw some comparisons to what Putin is trying to do in Ukraine by first taking over the Donbass region and his previous incursions back in 2014 to him trying to full on campaign in Ukraine starting 3 years ago. I think it's remarkable what the Ukrainians have done in terms of fighting back against the Russian army that Putin thought he was going to take over the country in 3 days, and 3 years later they've got no further. And so I take my hat off to them all, and how we've supported them. Ukrainians in this country, bringing in refugees in this country. That's what this country is all about, and so I absolutely support your motion tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Does anybody else wish to comment? Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, no, I support everything that Councillor Moxon said. I mean, Nottingham City, I was brought up in Nottingham City in 1911, and there's always been a vast community of Ukrainians in Nottingham. And it does beg me also to pray to get it started, but it's spot on this time. And I wish that everyone in the world can just hark back, because we tend to make the mistakes that history, if we don't learn the lessons from history. And it sounds to me, and it looks to me as though history is repeating itself, and unless we can get a grip with this, the worst thing could happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to comment? Councillor Henshaw?
Thanks for ringing me in, Chair. This undoubtedly is an important motion to be forwarded to this council. And quite rightly, people were making comparisons with what happened in the run-up to the Second World War. And as everyone in this chamber will know, we're coming up to celebrate the 80th anniversary of VE Day. My particular father was in the Royal Artillery during the Second World War. And lots of people in this room have relatives that served, and served not only in the Second World War, but in all the conflicts since. So, as supporters of the armed services, and supporters of what would have, not supporters of what could have happened, if we cast our minds, what do you think would have happened if the Nazis had won the Second World War? None of us would be sat in this chamber. Democracy would have gone. And make no mistake about it, this motion is about democracy. It's about us supporting a democratic country that is being attacked by a totalitarian regime. Now, when we look at it, I had great sympathy for the Russians during the Second World War, because they lost 30 million people defending their own country and helping to free the West. But in saying that, things change, quite rightly. What's happened? We've replaced a system with another system, and a system of fascist totalitarianism and people that are, in my mind, evil. The situation in the Ukraine is volatile, to say the least. And I'm glad that the party at the extreme, on my extreme left, have disassociated themselves from their leaders' comments and their party's view in relation to the Ukraine. Distancing themselves fine, and I hope that they will support our motion. But we get no truck out of criticising the Ukraine president and the Ukrainian people who are fighting for their very lives. It does us no good when the Western alliance is being fractured and fragmented because of people in positions of power who will not fight against evil. Now, years ago, and I'm not sure whether this is still correct, Mansfield District Council, under their sister cities arrangements, actually were twinned with Roitov in Russia and Stry in the Ukraine.
Now, whether or not they are still part of the sister cities groupings and we're still associated with them, if we are, I would hope that the mayor would write a letter of support to the mayor or the people of Street in the Ukraine, showing them that we are thinking about them and we are supporting them in their efforts. We cannot distance ourselves from a situation that if it's not checked and stopped, then every one of us in this chamber will not be able to participate in the democratic process. The democratic process that's going to be unfolding in May, where people in Mansfield and Nottinghamshire will be able to vote for candidates. Whoever they vote for, democracy sometimes throws a curved ball, but we'll see. But at least people have the opportunity. One of my concerns is that people don't actually bother to vote. And I'd like to see an Australian system come in where people have to go to the poll. But when you look at it, this council is showing solidarity, and somebody that comes from the left, I understand the virtue of solidarity. When you stand with other people, they feel that they're being supported. And I think this motion shows that the people of Mansfield support the people of Ukraine in their hour of need. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henshaw. Councillor Burnett. I'm sorry.
We've talked about World War II. Many members have talked about World War II. I'd like to draw attention to the Cold War. At the end of the Cold War, Ukraine had ended up with nuclear weapons. And the agreement was that they would get rid of the nuclear weapons as long as their sovereignty was assured. The UK was a government that signed that treaty. In helping Ukraine, as a nation, we are saying that our word matters, unlike other nations in the world. When the UK agrees to something, we keep that word, and that is why I think it is such a good motion to have, because we are saying that when the UK signs a treaty, it means something.
Thank you, Councillor Burnett. Does anybody else wish to comment? Councillor Common.
Thank you. I agree with my colleagues here. I think Storm's done a pretty good job, not being taken in. Mansfield's always stood for what's right. We support our armed forces, we stand by our allies, and we know that peace and security don't come free. They have to be defended. Right now, Ukraine is fighting not just for its survival, but for the security of Europe. Just I listened to a program this yesterday where they shot Himmler, and they slaughtered 100,000 people for that one man. That was fascism at its worst. That was allowed to happen because good people stood by and let it happen. Right now, Ukraine is fighting not but for Europe. If Putin succeeds, he won't stop at Ukraine. We know that. Moldova could be next, and NATO could be next. And if NATO is threatened, Britain will be forced into a much bigger, more costly conflict. What's cheaper, supporting Ukraine now or sending British troops to defend Europe later? Some politicians would have you believe that the Ukraine is not our problem. That Britain should step back. I've seen some sites where it's covered with Ukraine, it's not our problem. What we're fighting it for, I mentioned those sites, but I wouldn't. For the argument from Donald Trump, from J.D. Vance, and some sections of the Reform Party say this same thing. They claim they would end the war in 24 hours. Well, it's not ended yet. But they really mean it's forcing Ukraine to surrender. That's not peace, it's appeasement. And we know what it is, don't we? And appeasement has never worked. The truth is, standing with Ukraine in Britain's best interests. We are a global leader. We rely on strong alliances to keep our country safe, and we depend on international stability to grow our economy. A weak Britain does not create jobs. A Britain that abandons its allies does not attract investment. A Britain that isolates itself is not a strong Britain, it's a diminished one. So when you hear politicians talk about turning away from Ukraine, ask yourself, what messages message does this send? It would weaken our standing, embolden Putin, I've actually heard the politician to be called Putin, I don't know who that is, and make the world a more dangerous place. Britain has always been a country that leads, not one that retreats. And now, more than ever, we must stand firm and support our people in Ukraine, and I support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Camilleri. Councillor Kelleher?
Yeah, there's an old saying, and I believe it's true as well. United we stand, divided we fall. And there's nothing truer than at this moment in time, Ukraine, and we need to stand behind them every step of the way.
Thank you, Councillor Kelleher. Does anybody else wish to comment? Thank you. Councillor Tempest Mitchell?
Thank you, Chair. I support this motion and I support everything that everybody said in front of us, but actually I also think about this is how we in Mansfield, as members of this council, support the government in their efforts to support Ukraine and obviously the people of Ukraine. About 10 million people in Ukraine are displaced either within the country or across Europe, and obviously a lot of them have come to the UK. In Nottinghamshire, we have about 250 families-ish. I teach 3 kids from 3 different families, and in most schools in Mansfield, there's about half a dozen kids from families. So it's clearly, obviously, something that the people of Mansfield support absolutely, that we are keeping an eye out for families and the people of Ukraine. I therefore obviously ask that all members support the motion, which I think is pretty unanimous that most people do and will. The motion also mentions the excellent armed services that we have across the UK. In Nottinghamshire, we have approximately 32,000 armed forces and ex-armed forces staff. In Mansfield, somewhere in between 3,000 and 4,000. We're not sure exactly where about that, but clearly we have a lot of armed forces representation in the district, and obviously we should be showing our support for them, particularly the service personnel who may end up somewhere in Eastern Europe for the next, hopefully, 2 months, but probably a lot longer than that. And the motion speaks to that itself, that Keir Starmer said in Parliament we should be supporting our excellent armed forces staff. The motion also mentions the excellent global leadership that Keir Starmer has offered. He brought together a coalition of the willing, and he's doing it every single day, now on 24 hours a day. And this is putting us back on the world stage. For the last 10 years or so, and certainly the last 5 or 6 years, our standing in global politics has died, particularly across Europe. Yeah. But also clearly and obviously over to America as well, because whilst Sir Keir Starmer is doing a damn good job dealing with the new president of the United States, maybe he has one foot in America and one foot in Europe, and rightly so, because our allies and our long-term allies have been both sides of the Atlantic, and it's important that we in Mansfield recognise that, and the people of the UK recognise that. That we must be global leaders, and Sir Keir Starmer is clearly doing an excellent job. James cleverly, reluctantly admitted that he'd not put a step wrong over the week when President Trump was, for want of a better word, bullying President Zelensky, another democratically elected leader in Europe, a leader of a country that's been attacked and lost approximately 100,000 people. I commend and support the motion that NDC should do everything we should do, everything we could do to support our armed forces, the people of Ukraine, and Sir Keir Starmer's efforts to bring us back into global leadership. Thank you.
Elected Mayor?
I want to thank everyone for their contribution. So poignant, really, and quite emotional, really, talking about it. I mean, those stock statistics that Councillor Tempest Mitchell just gave us, it's a real reality check to, you know, the costs of fighting for freedom. 100,000 people lost their lives in Ukraine, and we cannot understate the bravery and determination of the people of Ukraine, and we cannot abandon them. They are that front line protecting our democracy. They're not just far away, it's relevant. That line goes, we don't know where it stops. And it does need someone right now, and Sir Keir's doing that, showing that great leadership, trying to be that voice of reason between President Trump and his dislike for the European Union, to have a foot in both camps, to bring parties together. You know, we've got to make sure that NATO survives and we all work together. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who's contributed, and I feel confident we'll be supporting this motion.
To the vote, this will be by show of hands. All those in favour of supporting the motion? Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 11, item 12 is not necessarily strengthened. 11 meeting will now be closed. Thank you everyone for attending.
Right.